In this video, we introduce the idea of matrices and look how we can perform arithmetic with matrices. As an introductory example, consider the table here that shows the results of 4 football teams during the first part of a football season. We've obviously got the column headings and the row headings in the table, but the major part of the table is the 4 rows, each with 3 numbers in them. And if we extract those 4 rows of each 3 numbers, we end up with a matrix. It's usual to put a matrix inside brackets. And what we need to just understand is that the first row corresponds to team A, the second row corresponds to team B, the third row corresponds to team C, and the fourth row corresponds to team D. And then the first column is the number of wins for each team, the second column is the number of draws for each team, and then the third column gives the number of losses for each team during that first part of the season. This matrix that we have got, as we've already observed, has got 4 rows and it has got 3 columns. And we say that the matrix M1 is a 4 by 3 matrix to express the fact that it's got 4 rows and 3 columns. So there is our matrix for the first part of the season again. And here is the matrix for the second part of the season. Now, if we have a look at this, for instance, the 2 circled entries there mean that in the first part of the season, Team C drew 3 games, and in the second part of the season, Team C drew 6 games. So altogether, Team C drew 9 games during the season. Now this suggests then that if we want to find the results for the whole season, all we need to do is add the 2 matrices element by corresponding element. So if we add M1 and M2, the first row we're going to get is going to be 8 plus 7, which is 15, 2 plus 5, which is 7, and 2 plus 0, which is 2. So we've got the 15, the 7, and the 2. The second row will be 11 plus 5 is 16, 1 plus 3 is 4, and 1 plus 3 is 4 again. The third row is going to be 9 plus 5 is 14, 3 plus 6 is 9, and 1 plus 0 is 1. So that is going to be 14, 9, 1. And then the final row, exactly the same way, 8 plus 4 is 12, 1 plus 2 is 3, and 4 plus 5 is 9. So adding matrices is nice and easy. If we think about the final entry there, the circled entry, we're looking at Team D, we're looking at the number of losses of Team D, so we can see that Team D lost 9 games during the season as a whole. So here again are the results for the first part of the season. And in football, the usual points awarded are 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and no points for a loss. So if those are the points awarded, we can calculate how many points each team got. So for Team A, we've got 8 times 3, plus 2 times 1, plus 2 times 0 is 26. For Team B, similarly, we've got 11 times 3, plus 1 times 1, plus 1 times 0, which is 34. For Team C, we have got 9 times 3, plus 3 times 1, plus 1 times 0, which gives me 30. And finally for team D, we've got 8 times 3 plus 1 times 1 plus 4 times 0, which gives me 25. Now we could write the points scored for a win, a draw and a loss as another matrix. And in this case we'll write it as a matrix with 3 rows, each with just one column. And the calculation we've done for the points can be written as a matrix multiplication. So it'll be the first example of a matrix multiplication that we've got. So we can do the calculation by calculating the matrix product of M1 times by P. So M1 times by P is calculated by doing the calculations we have just done. So in this case, the first entry is simply going to be 8 times 3 plus 2 times 1 plus 2 times 0, which gives us 26. The second entry is going to be 11 times 3 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 times 0, which gives us the 34. The third entry is going to be 9 times 3 plus 3 times 1 plus 1 times 0, which gives me the 30. And the fourth entry will be 8 times 3 plus 1 times 1 plus 4 times 0, which gives us 25. So, looking at how we've done that multiplication, we need to go across the first matrix and then down the second matrix. So for the first entry it was 8 times 3 plus 2 times 1 plus 2 times 0. For the second entry it was 11 times 3 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 times 0. For the third entry it was 9 times 3 plus 3 times 1 plus 1 times 0, and so on. So we have this pattern of going across the first matrix, down the second matrix. So let's have a look at another example of a matrix multiplication. So we are going to multiply the matrix 3, 1, minus 2, 1, 4, minus 3 by the matrix 5, 2. So the first entry is going to be 3 times 5 plus 1 times 2, and that of course is 17. The second entry is going to be minus 2 times 5 plus 1 times 2, which is minus 8. And the final entry is 4 times 5 plus minus 3 times 2, which is 14. At this stage it is worth your while getting a little bit of practice at doing simple matrix multiplications yourself. So please just pause the video and have a go at answering these two questions before you continue. And now there is just one more question for you to do, so pause the video again and answer this question before you continue. Now, so far all we have done is we have multiplied a matrix by a single column matrix. How do we multiply a matrix by a multi-column matrix? Well, to see how to do this, let's take an example where we have two ladies, Mary and Sheila, who buy items given in the matrix S. So Mary, for instance, buys three cans of baked beans, 2 packets of cereal and 3 loaves of bread, whereas Sheila is just buying 1 packet of baked beans, no packets of cereal and 2 loaves of bread. And they have a choice of going to either the supermarket or to a small shop, and we've got the prices of the baked beans, the cereal and the loaf of bread at each of those two shops given in the second matrix. Now, if we take the matrix S and multiply it by the supermarket prices, we know exactly how to do that matrix multiplication. We're going to get, first of all, 3 times 55 plus 2 times 140 plus 3 times 90. And with the aid of a calculator, we can find out that that's 715 pence, or if you like, £7.15. And we've also got 1 times 55 plus 0 times 44 plus 2 times 90, which gives us 235. And the significance of this calculation is that 715 would be the cost of Mary's purchases if she bought them at the supermarket, and the 235 would be the cost of Sheila's purchases if she bought them at the supermarket. We can do an entirely similar thing to work out what the prices of Mary's purchases and Sheila's purchases would be if purchases were made at the shop. So for Mary, we've got the calculation 3 times 65 plus 2 times 160 plus 3 times 100 to work out, and that gives me 815. Whereas for Sheila, the calculation is 1 times 65 plus 0 times 160 plus 2 times 100, which gives me 265. Now we can combine these two calculations. So we've done the matrix multiplication for the supermarket, we've done the matrix multiplication for the small shop. We can combine those two calculations into a single matrix multiplication of matrix S times by matrix P. And we'll see how we execute that now. So matrix S times matrix P is that, and all we do is we simply start by concentrating on column 1 of matrix P, so we block out column 2 altogether, and we do that matrix multiplication. So going across the first matrix, down the second matrix, I've got 3 times 55 plus 2 times 140 plus 3 times 90, and that gives me 715. Then going across the bottom row in the first matrix and down the first column, I've got 1 times 55 plus 0 times 140 plus 2 times 90, which gives me my 235. Now we need to block off the first column and concentrate on the second column of P. So the top entry is going to be 3 times 65 plus 2 times 160 plus 3 times 100, which gives us 815. The bottom entry is going to be 1 times 65 plus 0 times 160 plus 2 times 100, which gives me 265. So let's have a look at another example of a matrix multiplication. So this time I've got the first matrix has got 3 rows and 2 columns. The second matrix has got 2 rows and 3 columns. To do the multiplication, we are going to block off everything except the first column of the second matrix. And we're then going to do that multiplication. So first of all, top entry, 5 times 1 plus 0 times minus 2 gives me 5. 1 times 1 plus 2 times minus 2 for the middle entry. So 1 times 1 plus 2 times minus 2 gives me minus 3 for the middle entry. For the bottom entry, 3 times 1 plus 4 times minus 2 gives me minus 5. I now need to block off the first column in matrix 2 and concentrate on the second column of matrix 2. Top entry, 5 times 2 plus 0 times 3 gives me 10. Middle entry, 1 times 2 plus 2 times 3 gives me 8. Bottom entry, 3 times 2 plus 4 times 3 gives me 18. And to finish it off, I need to block column 2 of the second matrix again and concentrate on column 3 of matrix 2. So again, 5 times 4 plus 0 times 5 is 20. 1 times 4 plus 2 times 5 is 14. 3 times 4 plus 4 times 5 is 32. So there we've done our multiplication of those two matrices. And here's another pair to multiply together. The first matrix has only got 1 row but 3 columns. The second matrix has got 3 rows and 2 columns. Block off everything except the first column in the second matrix. Do the multiplication. Well, there's only one multiplication I can do here. That's 5 times 1 plus 1 times 2 plus 0 times 3. So that's going to give me 7. And now I can block off column 1 of the second matrix and concentrate on column 2 of the second matrix. 5 times minus 2 plus 1 times 0 plus 0 times 4 gives me minus 10. So my answer for that matrix multiplication there is 7 minus 10. Now we need to remember the notation used in matrices. The matrix that we've got here has got 2 rows and 3 columns, and we call it a 2 by 3 matrix. Now let's just review quickly the examples that we've looked at of matrix multiplication. In this first example we started off with a matrix with 2 rows and 3 columns. So we started off with a 2 by 3 matrix. We multiplied it by a 3 by 2 matrix, and we ended up with a 2 by 2 matrix. In the second example we started off with a 3 by 2 matrix, and we multiplied it by a 2 by 3 matrix, and we ended up with a 3 by 3 matrix. And in the third example we looked at, we started off with a 1 by 3 matrix, we multiplied it by a 3 by 2 matrix, and we ended up with a 1 by 2 matrix. But what happens if we try to evaluate this multiplication? So what have we got? We've got a 2 by 3 matrix multiplied by a 2 by 2 matrix. And if we were to start this off, the first calculation that we would try to work out would be 4 times 4 plus 6 times 5, but then we wouldn't know what to do with the 2. What are we going to multiply the 2 by? So that simply cannot be done, that calculation. So matrix multiplication can only be done if the number of columns in the first matrix is the same as the number of rows in the second matrix. finish this video, there's one final exercise to do. So again, pause the video at this point and have a go at these two questions. And having looked at these two questions, you've actually finished the content of this video.